Welcome back to another slideshow video. Billionaires won't save us. Now, billionaires have been messing up stuff across the world for decades now, for centuries even. But this current crop of billionaires truly hate us, the working class. They truly hate the proletariat. And we'll talk about that and we'll get into that. So I want to start off home with a very British example. Jim Ratcliffe, he bought a minority stake in Manchester United. However, his minority stake gives him sporting control over the club. What has he done? He's decided to cut jobs at Manchester United, but mostly from the lowest paid workers, from the people who really need their jobs. At the moment, it's about 250 people who've had their jobs cut. There's a plan for about another 200 people to lose their jobs as well. This is mostly people who are, behind the day-to-day running of the club, and also, they're taking away standard work benefits, I don't know, lunches and stuff. For a massive company the size of Manchester United, that's something that is normal. They took away snacks and stuff. Even coaching staff isn't allowed lunch. It's not great. They've also increased the price of a disabled parking ticket for a season to well over £400, which is obscene. Most clubs have that parking for free. Manchester City, I believe, it's about £6 a match, which might rack up, but over a season, £400+ is a lot of money on top of a season ticket to go to Old Trafford. But the thing is, Jim Ratcliffe doing all of these things, the amount of money that he has spent or cost Manchester United, it pales in comparison to these cuts, pales into comparison to things he could have done to actually increase Manchester United's revenue. This is from a football perspective. Instead of, doing the things that would make sense from a footballing perspective, not replacing your director of football after hiring him, not giving a manager a contract after you flirt with firing him, then fire him 3 months later so you have to pay out the rest of his contract, just like you had to pay out Dan Ashworth's contract, and in doing so then having to pay Sporting £14 million to poach their manager who isn't doing great because his style of football is completely different and you need him to change that around. It's crazy because the amount of money he's spending on doing those things is far more than the amount of money he will probably save in the day-to-day running of Manchester United being slashed. He even took away goodwill things like a charity for former football players who are struggling. Those sort of things really build loyalty, really build a connection with your fans from a footballing perspective. But people like Sir Jim Ratcliffe don't care about that. They just will look at numbers and be like, if I cut all the working people and force those who remain to work even harder, then I can exploit their labour more, because it's easier than having to go through and take steps of actually running a football club actually well. And I'm not a Manchester United fan. I'm glad to see them doing poorly, but I'm not glad to see the workers at Manchester United suffering because they brought in a guy who clearly doesn't know anything about running a football club, and he's just punishing the working class, the lower working class proletarians who are working at Manchester United, a football club pretty historically deeply working class. And it just proves they don't care. Ratcliffe doesn't care about the football, really. He wanted to buy Chelsea. He just wants a football club to say, I own a football club. He has a history of working, treating workers horribly across all of his businesses. He has moved his business location outside of the UK to avoid tax. He himself moved to Monaco, or at least resides in Monaco, to avoid UK tax. Billionaires won't do anything to help anyone but themselves. Even the businesses they run, they will happily destroy the businesses and destroy the people who work for them, as long as it means they make money. He's still going to get his massive dividends from Manchester United. He's still going to get his paycheck from Manchester United for sporting work. That's all Jim Ratcliffe cares about. Now let's talk about Elon Musk. I know. We're going to have to do this for the next 4 years, unfortunately, unless someone will Luigi's him. Allegedly Luigi's him. Elon Musk is a person who's going around saying, we're going to drain the swamp, we're going to get rid of all of the federal spending, we're going to make it lean, and then this man takes billions of dollars in government aid, government contracts. The government spends excessive amounts of money to use his, B-rate space stuff, his B-rate Tesla stuff, and I'm sure over the next 4 years, his only reason for wanting to get involved with the US government is to ensure, his companies, and he is able to integrate his companies into contracts for a long time with the United States and continue to generate money from the United States in the next 10, 15 years off of long-term contracts. That's really his only point in being there. All this Doge stuff. And also, he's probably a bit of a loser and he just wants attention because clearly his father didn't like him very much and his father didn't give him much attention. His kids don't like him very much. The women he's slept with clearly don't like him very much either anymore. And so this guy's only goal is to enrich himself and make more money. And he's using the US government to do that because a government is probably your best sort of client because they're going to pay out anyway. And they're going to dangle these things of oh, here we lied about $80 billion going to something. Now give me money for some sort of contract I want with the US government. And the US government, the current one's going to do it. To be honest, he could have ingratiated himself with the Democrats as well, and they probably would have just handed him money hand over fist. I think if he just wasn't someone who was clearly insecure the way he is, he would have just done what other billionaires did and just ingratiated themselves to both parties. He just wants attention as well. And this, United States giving these major companies government aid and stuff is a direct contrast to China. If you look at China and you look at Evergrande, Evergrande basically was speculating on on Chinese housing, and the Chinese government turned around and were how dare you try and exploit and speculate on Chinese housing, something that we as China believe is a right for everyone in this country, and housing should be, affordable for everyone and should be for everyone. And the Chinese government basically turned around and said, you deserve to fail. It was your capitalist actions that led you to this point. It was your desire to make more and more money off the Chinese people which led to your company basically collapsing. And China's basically not bailing them out. They're probably assisting enough to ensure that housing stock isn't majorly affected in China and that the Chinese people don't suffer. But Evergrande losing its market share and its capital and all of that, China was just good. And frankly, the United States and the free market, which we'll go on to actually soon, all of those people claiming we're the free market, we believe in businesses being well run and well operated. Well, clearly not, because billionaires oftentimes are the ones who are trying to make the most money off of government subsidies. It is far, far easier for a huge company to be able to get money from the government than it is for a small business to be able to do that, for a local business to be able to do that. I don't know about the United States, but in the UK, if you're a small business trying to get funding or help from the government, it is difficult. You have to jump through hoops to get that. And oftentimes, many of the assistance the government gives you is actually handled through third parties, oftentimes banks and stuff, and it becomes a personal loan, so it's not really a government loan. And there's liability issues and all of that sort of stuff, and it's you clearly only favor these big businesses because the big businesses have the means to actually grease the wheels for the politicians. The billionaires will scratch the backs of the politicians will scratch the backs of the billionaires, and that's why everyone in the West was oh my god, China's gonna fail, they're gonna let Evergrande fail. And China's just well, that was their own fault. They decided to fuck about with housing, and so yeah, let them fail. We'll figure it out. We will subsidize it. China will do something to ensure that the housing doesn't go to waste, and they'll just let the company fail, which is something that clearly these capitalist nations claim they would allow to happen. But you've seen over basically since 2008, countless companies in the UK and the US failing, and then it needs bailouts from the government, but then the companies turn around and screw over their workers in the end, but they still take the money and they still run with the money, and it's mostly the shareholders and the owners and the CEOs and the board members who go with the money. And I think talking about shareholders and people who go with the money, let's talk about Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos has taken another route to screwing over the proletariat. And it's pretty obvious this is something that newspapers have done for a long time, but this is just so blatant that it's kind of like funny. He put out this tweet basically saying the opinion pages of the Washington Post are going to talk about defense of two pillars: personal liberties and free market. And he tries to justify it being like, I'm an American and for America, yeah. Okay, and basically he's doing this shtick of, we're gonna be the most American company out there. We're gonna start talking about liberties and the free market. And I'm like, are you though? Because Amazon also gets subsidies from the United States government, which is kind of helps them be able to undercut all of their competitors. Personal liberties, his workers don't really have rights, particularly in the US. Here in the UK, where basically the government is basically like going to Amazon, why don't your workers have rights? And Amazon are like fighting to justify not giving their workers rights. And it's just like, this guy doesn't care about Americans. He doesn't care about America. He's just basically trying to position himself to go for what he thinks is the right-wing cultural zeitgeist, and he's trying to use his newspaper to justify the kind of things that Amazon is going to do. So the free market, he's basically going to use his newspaper to justify Amazon trying to undercut all of its competitors. Amazon basically doing that thing where they deliberately lose money on certain things to undercut competitors, so competitors go out of business. Books is a big example of this. They undercut bookstores. They sell books at a loss for themselves, and then bookstores go out of, they go bust, or they get bought up by Amazon, and then Amazon raises the prices. I think they did this with diapers as well in the past, at least in the US. They sold them so cheaply because they bought a company, and now they've raised the prices to what they were before the other companies went bust because they have a monopoly. And which is funny, which is that he says there was a time where a newspaper, especially one that was a local monopoly, and it's like, my brother, your business is a monopoly, especially when it comes to physical products. And so these billionaires don't care. All they're going to do is try and ensure that they get richer and that their shareholders get richer. None of these billionaires care about you. None of these billionaires care about me. They don't care about their workers. They probably don't really care about the shareholders. All they care about is enriching themselves, oftentimes shareholders of the same class as them. They are the bourgeois exploitative class, and they don't care about you and me, regardless of your political alignment. If you're right-wing, if you're left-wing, these billionaires do not care about you. If you're someone who is against DEI, if you're someone who, wants to keep the immigrants out, at the end of the day, Elon Musk, Jim Ratcliffe, Jeff Bezos, they don't care about you. They don't care about what you want. They don't care about you wanting to look after your family. If you can be exploited to ensure they make more money, whether it be from your labor or just, your nowadays data is like another form of exploitation. They can exploit you in any way. They're gonna do it. And that is just the reality of billionaires. So never put a billionaire on a pedestal. Do what you can every single day to oppose a billionaire in some way. Anarchist calisthenics is something that people have been really talking about recently. Prince Shakur released, I think, 2 videos about it recently. People on other platforms are talking about it. People have written books about this. Do the little things to defy them. cut your Amazon orders. If you want something cheap and easy, delete your Goodreads account. Delete your AbeBook account. Or if you're using AbeBook, don't buy through AbeBooks. Phone up the bookshop and be like, hey, will you guys deliver yourselves? Do you guys have your own website what I can buy through, not just on AbeBooks? No. Can you reserve a book for me and I can come in store and buy it off you in 2 weeks' time? Those are like easy ways of doing it. And then you push it more and you push it more and you push it more. Billionaires don't care about us. They don't care about you. They don't care about me. And we just need to start caring for our communities, caring for each other. Because very clearly, these ultra-rich men do not care for us. And they never will.